Hey everybody, it's Leroy from Leroy Gaming, and today I'm bringing you my third day one character build guide for Tiny Tinas Wonderlands. Today we are looking at the BRR-Zerker, and with the BRR-Zerker we are gonna have a spin to win build. I know if you're gonna play a BRR-Zerker, I'm guessing you're gonna want to spin, and when we spin, we always want to win. So what is this build about? Well, first of all, it is a combination of the BRR-Zerker and a Stabbomancer. This build is going to take frost damage and say, to hell with it. To hell with it, Crom. And instead, we're going to be focusing on moving as fast as we can, having really high crit chance. While we're moving fast, we're going to be spinning like crazy, critting like crazy. We're going to want to pick up the biggest stick out there and smash things as hard as we can. Very primal, very straightforward, but very powerful. And if you want to go for a build that is very melee heavy, I think this is going to be your best option. It's going to be quite tanky. It's going to have a lot of health. So the way it's going to stay tanky is by having a lot of life ability to kind of regen health. And as you kill things, you're going to be healing for a lot of health. So this should be a lot of fun. So if you're ready to spin and crush your enemies, have them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the enemies in Tiny Tinas Wonderlands, well then, you're at the right place for the right build. Now, as with my previous two videos, I'm going to go ahead and start by giving a quick summary of the build within Wonderland Skill Calculator, for those of you that want the quick nitty-gritty, and then for those of you that want to stick around and see the full build as far as me explaining what to get in what order, why I pick the different passives, and how this all synergizes piece by piece, well, I'll have that for you as I always do in my guides. So let's go ahead and take a look at my BRR-Zerker / Stabbomancer spin to win build. So we're going to start here by looking at the Wonderland skill calculator. I'm going to have a link to this calculator down below if you want to use this yourself. Now, I do want to point out, if you've watched my first two guides, there's been some confusion for those of us that aren't in early access, unfortunately, about exactly how many skill points we get at level 40. At first, people were telling me 40, and then people are saying 44. I'm feeling more and more confident that it is 44 indeed. So this build right here is for 44 points, but I will point out right at the end of the summary here exactly which points you're gonna eliminate if for some reason I'm made to look double silly and it ends up being 40 once this goes live in a few hours. So here's a quick synopsis. You're gonna be picking up, not necessarily in the order that you pick it up, but overall you can have 5 in Savagery, 3 in Unyielding, 5 in the Old Ways, 1 in Unarmored Defense, 3 in Blood Frenzy, 3 in Cold Snap, 4 in Ancient Fury, 1 in Blast Chill, 1 in Blood of the Fallen, and then we're going to have 5 in Arsenal, 3 in Haste, 3 in Follow-Up, 5 in Swift Death, 1 in Shadow Step, and 1 in Elusive. Now again, if for some reason you only have 40 points, then what you're going to be losing, unfortunately, is Elusive. You're going to be losing Shadow Step, and you're going to be losing 2 of the points in Arsenal. So that's the nitty-gritty. If that's all you were looking for, thank you for watching so far. If you don't want to help out the channel before you leave, do drop a like, drop a comment if you'd like to leave your feedback for me. Always read all of those and do my best to respond as best as I can. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at everything broken down, and I'll also discuss the weapon and gear recommendations for when you start out day one. All right, so we're going to start by looking at the 2 class feats we're going to have access to here. The first one is going to be Rage of the Ancients, which is from the BRRZerker side of things. Using an action skill causes the Fate Maker to become enraged, adding bonus frost damage to their attacks. Enraged duration will not deplete while an action skill is active, and ends if the Fate Maker enters Save Your Soul, which is the same as Save Your Life in the previous games. Activating an action skill when already enraged restores a portion of the enraged timer. So what's kind of important about this is in itself, the Enrage feat or ability here that gets procced whenever you use an action skill isn't that big of a base boost. It's, I believe, about a 10% frost damage gets added, but this synergizes with a bunch of the different passive skill abilities. So a lot of them you're going to see will have a base effect like increases damage or health regen, and then it's going to double, for example, while enraged. So this ends up being better the higher level you go and the more synergies you unlock for this feat. Now, your second feat is really simple and really, really good. It comes from the Stabbomancer side of things, and we're going to get Dirty Fighting. The Fate Maker's critical hit chance is increased, and currently that's 30% crit chance. So that's on all hits, regardless. So melee, guns, etc. does not have to be in the crit spots of an enemy. So this is really, really good, and when you stack with other forms of crit hit chance, this is going to make it that you're critting all over the place. So really, really good feat. Very straightforward, but very powerful. Next, let's see which action skill we're going to choose of the 4 options we have. And it should be no surprise to you with a spin to win build that we're going to pick Dreadwind. So the Fate Maker spins, slashing anything nearby with their melee weapon and essentially becomes a pain tornado. Grants increased movement speed and slow immunity for a duration. That's important. You know, if the slow immunity wasn't there, this would be a bit of a bummer because we're all about stacking a bunch of movement speed buffs so that we can spin and cover as much space as we can while we're doing this ability. Now, this does stack with both your melee weapon, basically, as well as your action skill damage modifier. So this will scale really well into the end game. You're going to want the best two-handed weapon you can find. Overall for this build, as you're going to see with some of the other passives, you just want a big two-handed weapon that hits as hard as possible per hit. That's going to be important. And so this is obviously going to be a center part of all that action. All right, next we're going to go on to the passive skills, and we are going to start with putting 5 points into Savagery. This is going to increase your melee damage as well as your enraged duration, so you can stay enraged longer. And because most of the damage we're going to be doing is going to be melee damage, this is just a great initial investment. After that, we're going to go straight into Tier 2, and we're going to put 5 points into the Old Ways. The Fate Maker deals bonus damage and gains increased damage reduction. The closer you are to the enemy, the closer the enemy is, the greater the bonus. So basically, since we're going to be getting into melee constantly, we're going to get this nice increasing damage bonus as well as damage reduction, so we can become more tanky. So this is just perfect for this build. After that, we're going to go into Tier 3, and we're going to put 3 points into Blood Frenzy. This is our first kill skill. So you restore a percentage of your enrage timer as well as a percentage of your maximum health. And with 3 points, it's going to be 9% of your max health. So as you start scaling up, killing things, especially killing trash, you're going to just have this big old tornado of self-healing coming back right at you. So this is a great investment. And after that, we're going to put 1 point into unarmored defense. So it states a portion of the Fate Maker's ward, which is basically shielding from the previous games, is reserved and cannot be restored. But their maximum health is increased by a percentage of the reserved amount. Health can no longer be reserved. So the way this seems to work right now is it lowers your max shielding by 50%, and 150% of that gets given back to you as form of max health. So 150% of 50% is actually just 75%, but an extra 75% health, quite big. And since all of your healing is percentage based off your max health, this is a really good investment for 1 point for this build. Now next, we're going to actually go back to Tier 1, and we're going to put 3 points into Unyielding. So a percentage of missing health regenerates over time. While enraged, this effect is doubled. And so each one of these points is 0.5% health. So at 3 points, it's 1.5% of your health gets regenerated at all times. And then while you're enraged, it's going to be 3% of your health at all times. So this is going to help keep you topped off as you're moving around from pack to pack. And also in the middle of your spin to win, especially, it's going to be highly effective. After that, we're going to go back to Tier 3, and we're going to put 3 into Cold Snap. And I know I did mention we're not really leaning into cold damage on this build. We're not. What we care about is this passive increases your movement speed in addition to increasing your frost efficiency, which is fine. And while enrage, the effect is doubled. And again, we are all about increasing movement speed because we're going to have a special way to synergize with a passive when we look at the Stabbomancer side of things to increase our damage. So this is kind of setting up for the future. Plus, it lets you move around faster, which is really good, especially since we're going to be in melee so much. Now, after that investment, we're going to go all the way to tier 5, and we're going to put 1 point into Blast Chill. I know, I sound like a hypocrite, right? What's up with this chill stuff if we're not going for Frost? Well, the reason here is this is just too good for 1 point not to take. So whenever the Fate Maker deals melee damage, which is going to be constantly, to an enemy, there is a chance to release a Frost Nova. And I believe this is a 20 or 25% chance. And it's dealing Frost ability damage to nearby enemies, and it seems to scale based off the information I found off of 25% of your melee damage based off your weapon. So that's pretty decent, and it is AoE, so it should scale really well when you get a really, really good weapon. And of course, if you get your ability damage modifiers increased as well, that could be good as well. The downside is the Frost Nova cannot critically hit. That's for balance reasons. Kind of makes sense. It could be too overpowered. But this is nice when you're dealing with packs of enemies. Just chances to hit lots of things with your spin to win. And then that could proc potentially numerous times if you're spinning and hitting lots of things. So a really nice investment. And then to finish the unlocking process of our ultimate capstone in this skill tree, we're going to go back to tier 4 and we're going to put 4 points to the Ancient Fury. It's 4 out of 5 points. We're going to get additional maximal health and increased splash damage. So splash damage isn't bad. And we love max health because, again, all our healing is percentage based off max health. So this is just going to make us even more tanky and survivable. And that brings us to the capstone. We're going to put 1 point into tier 6, Blood of the Fallen. It's another kill skill. The Fate Maker's remaining action skill cooldown is reduced by a percentage. If an action skill is currently active, its duration is extended instead. This is an important distinction, so it never goes to waste. If it's on cooldown, it's going to make it come off cooldown quicker. And if you're in the middle of your spin and win, as you kill things, it's going to elongate. So you can stay. If you've got a lot of enemies to kill and you're constantly killing, it can help you keep in your spin to win for longer and longer. So this can scale really well. All right, and now we go over to the Stabbomancer side of things. And so for the first points, we're going to go ahead and put 3 points into haste. Melee attack speed is increased. Movement speed is increased. When you cast a spell, double this bonus for a duration. Now note this is our only interaction when it comes to passives with spells. That's okay though. You're going to want to basically hopefully pick a spell that's potent but also has a quick cooldown time so you can keep this up as often as you can. There's going to be a variety of options for you. This build is not really reliant on spells. I would just say again, get whatever provides the biggest buff to you. If you have something that buffs your melee attacks, that'd be amazing. Or just do a little burst spell. Just make sure that it's not a charge up skill because it's going to waste time. Or one where you have to tap multiple times. You don't want anything that's going to keep you from moving, from melee attacking, or shooting things to get some of the stacking buffs up that we're going to be looking at in a second. Next, we're going to go ahead and put 2 points into Arsenal, and this is to unlock tier 2. This is going to give you a flat damage increase to melee damage, spell damage, and gun damage. So it works, it's simple, and it's helpful. Next, we're going to go into tier 2. And in tier 2, we're going to put 5 points into Swift Death. So while moving, the Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt. The faster the Fate Maker moves, the greater these bonuses. So this is where everything culminates. All these different passes that we've been picking up that increase our movement speed. Don't forget when we're in spin to win, that by itself increases our movement speed as well. So this is going to increase our spin to win damage. And also just whenever we're running around and even hitting things with our melee weapons, this is also not exclusive to melee weapons. So even when we're running around and shooting our guns, this is going to help out as well. After that, we're going into tier 3 and we're going to put 1 point into Shadow Step. It's another kill skill. The Fate Maker's next melee attack is a guaranteed critical hit for a short duration. So this is why I say get the biggest, hardest hitting weapon you can. Having something that is really, really fast but doesn't hit as hard per hit is not going to be nearly as effective because this kill skill effect is only once after every single hit. So you'd want to kill something and then, make sure the next hit is as powerful as possible. Maybe kill something with it, and then this can proc again and so forth. Next, we're actually going to drop back down to tier 2. I'm going to put 3 points into follow up. Whenever the Fate Maker deals gun damage to an enemy, increase the damage of your next melee attack. This can stack. Melee attacks consume all stacks. So again, you can stack this up, and just one hit is going to use this up. Now, the way this is calculated, if you put 3 points into this, it's going to be 6% melee damage, and it can stack up to 10 times. So if you have a fast SMG, for example, hit something 10 times, it's going to stack to 60%, and your next big melee hit will do 60% more damage. That's how you'd want to optimally use it. After that, in order to unlock the next tier, we're going to want to put 1 point into Arsenal. Again, just a flat damage boost to melee, range, and spells. Can't go wrong. Now this is going to unlock tier 4. I'm going to put 1 point into Elusive. You can now shoot and sprint at the same time. Gain a chance to evade incoming damage while moving. The faster you move, the greater the chance. The main thing here is, because we want to be in melee, we're going to be wanting to move from pack to pack as often as possible, or as quickly as possible rather. So this is going to give us a chance to avoid damage. Now, as we're running or sprinting towards enemies, shooting them like with an SMG to again stack that buff so that our first melee hit is as hard as possible is also going to be useful. So again, for 1 point, this is great for this build. And again, sprinting is faster than normal moving, so again, it's going to also increase our damage from our movement speed being faster even more. And then, assuming there's 44 points again, we are going to have 2 points left, and we're going to go back into Arsenal. At this point, that flat damage to DPS, I feel like, is the best investment. I do want to point out, you could always go back to the BRrZerker tree. There is a skill point you could put into where it helps you in your save your life mode. So if you're still learning, if you find that you're dying a lot or going into save your soul mode a lot, you could invest into that tree and that skill point to kind of help you get up a little quicker. But if you're going for that full max DPS run, and you, because of all this health, all this mitigation and healing, you find that you're not really dropping very often, then I would just go for this straight DPS increase. All right, so now let's talk about weapons and equipment. Very straightforward. When it comes to your melee weapon, as I mentioned earlier, you're just going to want to get the biggest possible two-handed weapon that hits as hard as possible per hit to maximize the next hit bonuses that we get from these passives. And then for your gun, I recommend something that's rapid fire for, again, stacking buffs. So an SMG or an assault rifle could be really quite good. Or anything just, again, with a very high fire rate is going to be a big boon to you. When it comes to spells, again, just whatever your best spell you can find that seems to be within your playstyle that has a fast cooldown rate. If it has a long cooldown rate, you're going to miss out on some synergies here. As far as stats that you want to be aiming for, because you're going to be critting a lot, crit damage is going to be really, really good. Crit hit chance is also helpful. Your crit hit chance should be pretty decent, but it's not going to be capped out like some other builds. So you can definitely use some of that for yourself. Anything that increases your movement speed is going to be really, really good. Obviously, increases to your melee damage. Can't go wrong with that. You're not going to need nearly as much ability cooldown. As you saw in the passives, you have different ways of increasing the duration of your action skill and also lowering your cooldown time. So I feel like once you get hit level 40, especially, you're going to be able to constantly spam your action ability for this build. So that's not going to be as important. Can't go wrong with increasing your max health again, so that your survivability increases as well. So big, burly, tanky, Hulk smash mode related stats is really basically what you want here. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need to know to get started on day one of release and start building your spin to win BRrZerker build. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful. If you did, make sure to drop a like. If you watched this far and you like my style, feel free to subscribe. I focus on primarily looter shooters and RPGs. Sometimes I'll do some indie games, but I'm going to be leaning more and more back into looter shooters here, especially Tiny Tinas Wonderlands. You're going to see a lot of content for this. and games like Outriders. I've had a lot of coverage for that as well. So do check that out. That's another phenomenal game, by the way. And do check me out on Twitch during my stream to join me and play alongside me at twitch.tv/LeeroyGamingStream. I will be trying to play it as much as possible in the coming days here. So look forward to seeing you there. As always, thank you for all the support, guys, and I will see you in the next video.